Hey folks, this is your friend Alec Mohebian, and this is just to say, fire, fire. There's a fire going on. I don't mean to steal anyone's valor, but if you have you ever been in a fire? I'm not saying that I've been in a fire, but the closest I've been is seeing a wall of fire blowing 80 miles an hour across a canyon at my mother's house while I'm there, and having 15 minutes to pack up everything you possibly can and get the hell out of there. And I'm not even talking about this week. I'm talking about 5 years ago, the Getty Fire. That's when that happened. And so this week, it's coming from all sides. This week, the first evacuation was only in a yellow suggested zone of possibility, but we evacuated my mother and grandmother anyway, and then they moved back in a few days later because it seemed like it wasn't going to go east to Palisades Fire, but then, nope, the winds are changing, mandatory evacuation, have to evacuate again. And, you can see obviously there's just walls of fire everywhere. I, however, am completely safe, and so is everyone that I know. Multiple evacuations. Nobody's lost a home yet, as far as I know, and I'm not necessarily seeing an imminent danger of any one of us losing our homes, but I know, and we all know, people who've lost their homes. Everyone knows a bunch of people. There has been someone from this show, from the Elliot Rodger Part 2 episode, Max, he lost his home in Altadena. And it's just, there's never been anything like this. So anyway, fire. There's a fire. Right now it's the middle of the night. It's Sunday, early Sunday morning. It's been one of those, you can imagine how it is. Fire, all week long. My head's been scrambled. Everyone's kind of on edge, going somewhere, coming back. The air is obviously disgusting and filthy. My eyes are all sore. It's a little bit better now, but they were sore all week from, I'm assuming, the air, the ash. I mean, there was a close call in my apartment with the Sunset Fire that broke out on Wednesday. It would have taken out Hollywood if it had made it down to Hollywood Boulevard, as they were warning it would. But that one was somehow quickly taken care of. But the others are still raging, especially the Eaton Fire, which took out Altadena, and the Palisades Fire, which was making its way northeast, therefore forcing another evacuation for us, and threatening Encino in the valley, forcing them to evacuate. At the moment, it seems like there have been at this particular moment, it doesn't seem like it's been pushing forward beyond that. But we're a long way from over this, because there are more winds coming on Wednesday. And that is really what, I have to figure out how to talk about. Because as you know, if you've been listening to this, this show started with a diatribe sermon about the Santa Ana winds. And the first live show back in September 2023 was all about, in the monologue, all about the Santa Ana winds and their, as an instrument of the darkness and the goldness of the age. And now that I'm living in this particular week where everything that has seemed merely criminally poetic and hyperbolic and whatever you want to call it is real, I have to be very careful with how I proceed in dealing with it, because I can no longer deal with it as this fanciful, ornate prophecy. I have to be a very reliable narrator as to what's actually happening here. So I have to think about it a little bit, and I think I'm going to have to let the events of this week unfold, but I'm working on it. It may be something for in person, I don't know, but obviously I really need to reckon with what's going on here. At the surface political level, which I'm already exhausted of, but not really, because I've never been this angry. But at the surface political level, where the question, of course, is: do you politicize this? Do you politicize a disaster like this? Do we really need to? Do we really need to? Does the jury really need to go out on that particular question? I think it's a pretty quick answer, right? We can politicize the fuck out of this. We can politicize the fuck out of this. Get ready for some fucking politicization. Fuck. This is the culmination of everything. Everything. Everything that they've been up to, this is the culmination. And it doesn't matter what percentage of it is owing to a natural disaster level wind of 80 plus miles per hour, the worst that a Santa Ana can possibly be for 24 hours. It doesn't matter how much of it is extreme in that punch, in this particular Santa Ana punch, because we all know this punch is coming. It is the most well-known thing in the world. It is a wind. It blows. The wind blows. Breaking news. When wind blows, this kind of wind in this kind of place, fires can happen. And when you're not prepared, because you've spent 80% of your imagination on bullshit, that can be politicized. Political bullshit instead of protecting your land and your people. That can be politicized. That must be politicized. Everybody must politicize the fuck out of it. Starting yesterday. Starting 5 days ago. No one can be allowed to get away with this. Nobody who tacitly, complicitly endorsed the forces that allowed it to happen like this must be allowed to get away with it. They have to be called out. They've gotten away with way too much. We've all been silent in our various ways. We've all been quiet. We've all let it happen. We've all been silent Germans to some degree. That has to stop. Because people need to change radically and very quickly and in a critical number. Not all of them are going to change, obviously, but enough can change. Enough human beings can become human beings. It can happen. I know it. There's no time for dooming and for blackpilling. There's no time for gloominess. People can change, but they have to be pressured to change. They have to be pushed to change. There's been a lot of pushing this week, of course, coming from the Santa Ana winds. Since we hadn't done it ourselves, the winds had to come in and do it. And so there's a lot of pushing that's being done. No one's going to know exactly how much pushing has already occurred by the winds alone and the mayhem alone and the loss alone. Nobody knows, but whatever gap there might be that needs to be done, it needs to be filled by us. The people with consciousness, with a conscience, with a consciousness, and with a soul. It's on us. This is either you let the most important city in the world just blow away, or you save it. And I'm going to try and save it. And I'm going to try and, express why it's worth saving. That's what I've been doing for 3 years on this show, one way or another. I've been trying to express why it matters, why it specifically matters, Los Angeles, that is, why it matters, why it is a place of not just cultural significance and economic significance and whatever, a place of spiritual significance, a place where God can be found, while also being a big and obviously a vibrant and sizable city. God can be found in many places, but not necessarily many huge places. It's, it's easy to get lost. So I obviously believe that this city is worth saving. I've been trying to chart it out in public now for 3+ years, and also in ways that are not expressed on this particular program yet. But in order to save it, everyone's going to have to, it's no masks. There should be no masks. If anything, this fire should have burned off all the masks. And without masks, the people who did this I don't think that they can survive. They need us in masks. They need everyone kind of hiding from each other. They need everyone kind of blurry-eyed, kind of, with kind of that beige, steamed up view of things. Clarity doesn't do them any favors. So, yeah, politicized. It's going to be politicized 100% and more. And at the same time, I don't want to become a fucking you-know-what. You know what? I don't want to become that. I've always been cautious of spinning into that. And I don't like other people who are like that. They're boring to me. They're just boring. They become boring. And that's why so many people develop a kind of sweeping bias against politicizing something, or being seen as politicizing something. That there's this, they don't want to become, it's because they don't want their lives to be defined by such a narrow plane of existence, the plane of politics, or sociological type of thinking. I'm very sympathetic to that desire not to be constrained to that dimension. It's a very narrow dimension. It's seldom fulfilling. It's pretty stimulating in a certain way. There's like the dopamine, the anger, there's always going to be a source of it. Like, you can see why people devote their lives to just current thing posting. You could just pass your entire life doing that. But for what? For what? How rich of life is that when you're just repeating what a million other people are saying? So my job is not to repeat what a million other people are saying, though I'll tell you that right now, just in the Palisades alone, 20,000 acres has been burned. So Manhattan is 14,600 acres. Pacific Palisades, by the way, I've noticed for the first time a lot of people talking about how great a place that is. No one has ever talked about it before. Everyone is going on and on about how they're learning just now that Pacific Palisades is like another word that has the same number of syllables as Palisades. And they're talking about what a magical little enclave it is. And I've never heard about this before. You've never heard about Palisades. Why? There's never been a soap opera named Pacific Palisades. There's never been there's no selling Palisades. There's no, there's no Golden Bull rules, like Vanderpump Rules. There's nothing about Palisades society because it's not that bullshit society that is depicted in those Beverly Hills shows. It's actually a real place, and it's actually a real neighborhood and a real community, and people don't know that, and it's right here in LA. West, very west, you have to get almost to the edge of Sunset Boulevard there, the very edge, until it runs out into the Pacific Ocean. But there it is, a real community, a real little place, a real village with a real school, high school, where I went to school, Pali High. And if you listen to the last show, the end, you heard me point, you saw me on the radio pointing to Pali High as the place where I became an unholy goalie of some fame. It's a very special place, very, very dear to my heart, that is burned to the ground. Although I hear that half of it is intact. There's something special about that place. People are learning about. People will learn more about that. I've been long meaning and long failing to live up to the task of expressing just what that place means to the world and to me and to, how I became what I am. A really special place, Pali High, Pacific Palisades. Anyway, 20,000 acres. The total count, 1,200 structures have been burned down in all the fires combined. Shockingly, there's so far only, and this is with major knocking on wood, a couple dozen deaths. That number's probably going to go up a lot. I hope not too much because it does seem like a small number. It's definitely a smaller number than you would expect given the amount of damage, but any number is especially. It means that they burned in their houses. It's just the nightmare of all nightmares. There's a guy in Palisades I just saw a profile about. Anyway, there's a lot to talk about. There's just so much to talk about, but I want to make sure I take the right angle. There's a lot of angles, but I want to make sure I take the right temperature. I don't know. I have to figure out what dimension I'm going to deal with this in because I can no longer do it as a Barnum and Bailey, hocus pocus, Santa Ana wins. I can't do that because now it's 100% real. And not just real, but at a scope that is historic in size. And I think everyone is realizing now that this is emblematic of everything. This city is emblematic of everything, and its destruction is emblematic of the darkness that we submitted to, that we absolutely didn't have to submit to. It's emblematic of a lot of things. And I want to make sure I deal with it with the maximum amount of humanity and also, originality so that you're not coming to me for just a repeat of the news or of what other writers have said about the Santa Ana winds because it strikes them in a poetic way. They've all been, sometimes the writers are right. Sometimes the singer-songwriters and the storytellers and the romanticizers, sometimes they're right. Sometimes they see things that others, that one-dimensional, two-dimensional souls like an Ezra Klein would just never register. Something like the Santa Ana winds. Something like, sniffing out what might be the agent of the end times for a place. And sniffing out, on the surface, you think, well, this colossal disaster has no connection to the way that people just kind of subtly change when those winds come, and there is no disaster. You may think that these are completely separate of topics and events. The way it changes humanity and the way it potentially burns up everything. They're not. They're related events. And Anyway, obviously, there's a lot to figure out. There are the questions of, is LA done for? Can it be saved? Can it be, is there any hope for LA? Is there going to be a rightward shift in LA? What's going to happen? Is it a death knell for LA? Some people think it's a death knell for the city. There are people wondering if this is a sign. If there are signs, if this is a sign, this is a sign that LA's on fire. The fuck? Oh, these are these are watch duty notifications. Let's see what it says in Eaton Fire, 27% contained. That's good. That's a much higher number than I've seen. Kenneth Fire is now 100% contained. So that's the one that was on Victory Boulevard that popped up kind of later in the week. I think it was Wednesday night. Seems like we got that one taken care of. So that's one off the board. The big question is going to be whether we can get what they can do before more winds come on Wednesday. That's what's going to be that's the suspense. So anyway, but I just wanted to check in because I'm sure some of you are curious what I'm up to. So far, no losses. We've been very lucky. Others not so lucky. And my mom remains evacuated mandatorily. I think my uncle remains evacuated mandatorily from his La Crescenta home. And everyone else is just, bunkered down. And, of course, all the gays histrionically fled WeHo. I'm sure you saw, if you follow a bunch of gays. Very excitedly posting about that. Man, this is a gift for them. Boy, is this a gift for the gays of WeHo. But anyway, let's hope that things settle down, and I will have more for you soon. Thank you for listening.